the reason Aerodrome is currently had a little pump is because it flipped Uniswap in overall trading volume. So that includes
Actually,
Uniswap on Base and ETH. So Aerodrome actually flipped, at least temporarily, doing more volume than Uniswap on ETH mainnet, which is a big deal. And to explain what Aerodrome is simply, is it's a protocol where you can stake the token Aerodrome, and instead of just being a generic governance token like Uniswap, the stakers actually determine how much of the Aerodrome rewards and the trading fees go to each particular liquidity pool. So they have liquidity farming built in, and they've decentralized the governance of that to where all of the rewards are determined by the Aerodrome holders. So I think it's really cool.
all right, what's up, everybody? We're back with the AB research team. We are looking at a lot of different topics today. We've got Ethereum ETF going live. We've got a lot of politicians doing some crazy things, dodging bullets, standing there unfazed. We're excited to get into a lot of this research. So we've got our AB research specialist, Mr. Montgomery Whitetail, .eth, and Mr. Dill, famous Dill, and of course me, our leader, AB Rocket Pilot. Let's get into it. So today, Mr. Montgomery, what do we have here with the Blockworks ETF tracker? Tell me what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, pretty big news on Tuesday after, I think it was actually on Ethereum's 10th birthday of the ICO opening that the ETF went live. So it'll be something to watch over the next, let's say, 7 to 14 days. I don't think 1 or 2 days can really judge on it because of the ETH outflows. I think in the first 2 days it was 10% of the fund, so we got to let those settle. It'll be interesting to see like the ratio of these inflows versus Bitcoin.
Just past gold, didn't we? With as an aggregate, was it about 1 billion per day, which I think gold was about 1 billion for its one ETF. And then we have these, surpassing that, making this officially the second. I guess if you look at the ETH ETFs as one group, as one ETF, it would technically be the second biggest ETF of all time, I believe, which is pretty exciting news. I was seeing something like I think even the last. So does this or rank them in order of AUM? As we see here, our friends at Blockworks providing this nice dashboard. Is that correct, Monty?
Yeah. This is just something that ETFs are passive flows. So this is something to monitor over a certain amount of time period. 1 day is not really enough.
Right.
But it is exciting to kind of see the institutionalization of this asset class.
Yeah, right on. And we've got a lot of different dashboards that we're always posting. Actually, if you check us out on Warpcast, Farcaster, we're at AB1. We've actually got another one of our researchers, L2 Explorer, has been posting different dashboards every single day, different really good Dune dashboards. He's actually on a 28-day streak in the education channel on Warpcast. He posted a board about the flows as well. I mean, I love that there's so much visualization happening in the industry, enabling us to kind of find out, where all this money is going and where everything is moving. So I think, we don't need to restate the obvious, but obviously these ETFs are going to enable for, probably 10 times more money to flow into this market, to flow into Ethereum. And that's really exciting. It's a good time to be holding ETH. I mean, we're seeing immediately the price take a dip to, I think this is the smart money, eliminating all those leverage traders like some of our friends here at AB with their own personal funds getting wrecked. But that's okay because I think long term, we're going to be much, much higher than we are now.
Yeah, I've typically seen this like with the Bitcoin ETF. You just can't avoid the sell the news, especially when it's something that everyone's been looking forward to. I just find that you see this short term sell the news, but we're probably going to go for all time highs I would say within the next couple months here. So that seems to be normal. And we always hope it's just going to go straight up when the ETF drops, but it's just so highly anticipated. It's almost like it's sort of priced in, and then you have a dip, and I'm sure, like you said, they want to liquidate people before the big move up.
Yep. It's the can't lose trade, right? When the ETF passes, everyone levers long, and BlackRock goes, haha, gotcha.
Right, but if you catch the bottom here, then you could have a nice trade.
Yeah, you'll be reopening, right, Monty?
No comment.
Okay, we see Mt. Gox creditors getting crypto repayments after decades of waiting. Dylan, I think you used to have a pretty good Magic the Gathering collection, didn't you? You were playing.
I was actually had funds in this when it happened. It was just such a small amount, like dust from.
Did you really?
Yeah, like I get the emails for this, but I've
No
looked
way.
into it before, and it's a dust amount of money. It's almost nothing.
Wait, how did you have money on Mt. Gox? That's wild.
Because my account had a dust amount, like whatever was in there, the tiny amount that didn't get sent out. Especially back then, you couldn't send out the full amount because it would build in the gas fee, especially, you know?
Yeah, that's crazy. We're getting paywalled from Bloomberg, so we can't check out the whole email. But I've heard a lot about this. I've heard people thinking that this release is going to tank the market, which I think relative, it's really not that much to have even a sizable impact. I mean, Monty, do you have anything to say on this?
Yeah, it's nice that Bitcoin's the price is holding in here. Kind of coming from the private market side, I know that Fortress and some other kind of alternative asset managers were buying Mt. Gox claims on the secondary market over the past decade.
Right.
So a lot of the kind of expectations of people dumping, I don't think necessarily are there. But it's nice to kind of get the overhang of that done and like close that chapter. Obviously, Mt. Gox was a massive deal, and now that people are getting their money back, hopefully the industry can kind of continue to move forward.
Yeah, if any of you guys want to buy my BlockFi claims, let me know. I'll sell them to you for pretty cheap. We got Germany already lost out on 124 mil profit and selling its Bitcoin. So let's see what that was as of 4 days ago. That might be reversed now. But let's see. I didn't read this. What's this talking about?
Yeah, it's just more about different approaches, I think, of certain nations. Like I think El Salvador is buying a Bitcoin a day. The U.S. has kind of had crypto being a hot topic politically right now, but then you also see the other end of kind of some nations selling their confiscated Bitcoin for, I guess, money they can print themselves. So it doesn't really make that much sense to me, but I don't know. It's interesting to see people make kind of moves like this.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting. Actually, when we were on the last topic, this sort of came to mind because it's like, okay, is the outflows from Mt. Gox going to be this extreme? Because the market absorbed this dump pretty well. So I did think of this, and it's just like, okay, the market can sort of take some of these dumps.
Yeah, I mean, as bigger and bigger institutions get into the market, we have just way more liquidity. So I think that it's going to take massive money to actually swing the market. Kinds of like liquidations. I really don't think. I mean, yeah, these events can be kind of talking points, but as far as like the greater picture, more than just a short term movement, I'm still not too fazed by any of these dumps. It's just like back in the day when like in 2016, 2018. China's banning Bitcoin. That would happen probably every other month. China would be banning Bitcoin, and everyone would be scared the price is dumping. But ultimately, obviously, this is a pretty long-term game. We've got the Hillbilly Elegy.
I think it's Elegy.
What's Mr. JD Vance. I've heard of him. He's popular on Polymarket. What's he doing again?
So he is Trump's pick for vice president of the United States. He was working on crypto regulation in the Senate. So he's one of the senators working on that. He owns Bitcoin. He worked for Peter Thiel for a little bit. He had the largest fundraise single donation for a Senate race ever from Peter Thiel. So he's very connected, I'd say, in the kind of Silicon Valley VC community, but also kind of the right side of that. And he will be the most technologically forward person in the White House if Trump wins that we've, I think, really ever had in our lifetime. And so hopefully that can help kind of the U.S. move in the right direction, because this current administration has been hamstringing, to say it lightly, crypto, but a lot of other industries as well.
So yeah, I don't know much about this, about Mr. Vance. Why is he so technologically sound or advanced?
Well, to kind of give you his background, he grew up in Ohio, but spent time in Kentucky. Very poor family, like poor single alcohol, drug addict white mom. His grandmother was there for him. Nice. Joined the Marines after 9/11. Then went to Ohio State, graduated early. Then went to Yale Law School. Married an Indian woman who we met at Yale Law School. Worked in VC law, then VC, similar to kind of Peter Thiel's path, and then became a senator at 39, super young. And so he kind of has, let's say, a lot of boxes checked for a lot of different people that he can empathize and relate to. Mm-hmm. And when you hear him speak, it's just kind of it's very refreshing.
Okay, so I get that, but what's that got to do with tech? I mean, maybe is it with Peter Thiel and their relationship?
So right now, Pollack Market says Trump's going to win 70%. Mm-hmm. If this guy becomes a vice president, we will have clear regulation or productive regulation for a variety of emerging technologies. Crypto is one of them, but also energy independence and AI will be at the forefront of the agenda. He's a guy that thinks similar to us and is making moves that will make sense in the future.
Yeah.
For America's independence.
Me and Ken were actually just watching his memoir movie last night a little bit, and it's definitely an interesting story. And you know, I think that overall Trump has a lot of interest in crypto. We know that he's dropped NFTs. We know that he's talking about crypto on a near daily basis. So I think that choosing JD Vance and crypto and the relationship between all the technology actually has a bigger influence on Trump than most people realize. And I do think this decision is another indicator of that.
Interesting. Okay, right on. Well, we'll see. Excited to see how it plays out. MakerDAO Endgame. I was excited to see this. Some of our OG AB researchers, like L2 Explorer, the guy posting all those dashboards, is big in MakerDAO. Been active just on Maker for a long time. And I remember when he was posting about the Endgame, initially, probably several months ago. I know that they've kind of started to transition into this, new phase. But what is it all actually about? Monty, was there something exciting going on here?
Yeah, I mean, this is one example of kind of, let's say, the OG DeFi projects, Maker, Aave, Uniswap. They've all had news recently, and I just sent this one in, but news kind of increasing fees or changing tokenomics, or I think they're releasing a new token. Mm-hmm. So we had a pretty long kind of DeFi bear market, and a lot of these companies have pretty solid cash flows and are trading at pretty cheap valuations, at least compared to like public tech companies. I'm not sure how many liquid funds there are in this space right now, but it's definitely something to watch as they're kind of re-energizing their tokens or their communities with real cash flows behind it. I'm not sure how much crypto value is at right now, but when they're trading, I think the quote was at one point it was like 3 or 4 times sales to or price to sales for like Maker, and they're one of the top DeFi apps, and they're growing like weed. So
yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think we're seeing that the way you build an on-chain protocol is evolving, especially in DeFi. I don't know all the details about what Maker is doing, but it definitely makes me think a lot about, for example, Aerodrome, which I've been going deep into, and sort of how you can build all these incentives on chain. And the way I see it is that Maker is trying and Aave are trying to move to having more of their functionality on chain and new features built on chain. And I think there's big potential with that when the constituents are sort of deciding how some of the yield goes, and a lot of that stuff is built in. So it seems cool, and hopefully we're going to see a resurgence of some of these, legacy DeFi apps, if you will.
Yeah, right on. Just pulled up. If anyone who doesn't know, DeFi Llama is definitely a good tool to kind of check a whole bunch of different metrics on a lot of different L2s, different DeFi platforms. You can see a lot of information going on. We're always trying to give you guys, the public, just more tools to kind of be able to dive into these things yourself, play around, and just learn. There's an insane amount of tools, and we're trying to bring you the best ones. So, all right, let's move to the next thing. We got I see another thing. I guess going back to Vance for a moment, is him floating his crypto plan. Did we mention that, or is there a little bit more that we want to talk about here?
No, we really covered it, but just shows how kind of tech forward he is. That he's not even thinking about it. He was working on kind of being the guy in the Senate to kind of push that forward.
Yeah, got it. And then Hamilton Lane becomes first asset manager to launch a fund on Solana blockchain. Okay, who is Hamilton Lane? Is that someone I should know?
Yeah, I mean, this is just kind of my TradFi background here. Massive alternative asset manager. I mean, I think they have 920 billion in AUM and under supervision. I don't know what supervision means, so that could be inflating the number, but they're a massive firm and they're launching a product on Solana. They've been historically pretty tech forward. I think they did some of this securitize maybe a few years ago or last year. But yeah, I mean, I think this is the first kind of institutional capital, I'd say, that has been built on Solana.
Yeah.
So yeah, good news.
They're doing a tokenized RWA, right? This isn't a fund of Solana tokens. This is a RWA private asset fund that's going to be built on Solana blockchain.
So they're just managing the cap table on Solana, basically. Correct. I mean, they're not actually. Or maybe incorrect. I don't know, but there's a difference between, are they actually taking native assets and putting that on, or really native Solana assets that they manage? I mean, I don't think.
No, I imagine this is similar to like what BlackRock's build money market fund is.
Right, which is just tokenized, but the actual assets are not on the native Solana.
I mean, it's tokenized like USDC or whatever. I mean, that's
right. Right. I mean, it's still good press, and it's still it's an additive feature.
It's the first. Have you guys seen anyone, I guess, this kind of institutional building on Solana before? I haven't really seen that. It's more been crypto native firms, I feel like.
Yeah, no, not on Solana that I've heard of. I'm not too in the weeds on Solana, but I mean, I think it's definitely bullish.
Solana has typically and recently blown up for, I would say, SPL tokens, and people are trading a lot of meme coins and stuff like that on Solana. And honestly, I think it has some great advantages with the low transaction fee, the high throughput, especially for these types of use cases. Because, I mean, I think the biggest criticism of Solana is that it's centralized and the network goes down sometimes. Which is definitely a valid criticism. But I'm more of the mindset that as long as the community and the validators behind it and everybody's working together, then it's fine, right? So I would say it's less decentralized than something like Ethereum, but especially in these tokenized RWA use cases, you can use the blockchain to facilitate the assets, but ultimately it can't be the end-all, be-all of the records, at least in the state that we see it now. And that's the same when you build on Ethereum, right? So I think when you get into this sort of private asset management stuff, it makes even more sense, right? I think you have to worry about some of those issues even less than when you're dealing with, let's say, meme coins or SPL tokens on Solana. That would be my thoughts.
Yeah, well said. While we're on the note of politics, I feel like this is I mean, honestly, everyone's timelines and everything is all political. It must be election year. Everything is breaking and going insane. We've got one of our friends here, Scott Melker. Scott Melker is a very good. He appears to came out of nowhere for me, but I'm sure he's been grinding for years and years. But he's been having some very crazy, very good, super relevant guests on his show. Everyone from the Bloomberg analysts with the ETFs to RFK he just had yesterday on his vision with crypto and the future for Bitcoin, as you can see here. So I actually haven't even dug into this yet. This just dropped yesterday, and I'm excited to watch it and kind of get RFK's take. I wish we had Elon here. Elon's a big RFK guy, one of our other growth directors. But any of you guys kind of tapped into RFK at all in the past year or 2 years as he's kind of been on his campaign journey, and have any opinions or takes on him and his philosophy? Do people think that, I've heard people think that he's going to be related in the Trump campaign somehow instead of kind of going his own route? I don't know. What's the word on the streets with RFK and crypto?
He lost the Democratic nomination. They didn't give him a chance, but because of that, it doesn't really matter. I don't know. I don't think what he says at this point has that much relevance unless something changes. But before the non-presidential kind of race, he wasn't really talked about, and he lost.
Okay.
Not to discredit him, but I don't know, if he gets a cabinet position or something, I guess that changes it. But at this point, I get he's running, but I mean, maybe he steals votes from one side, which he's a variable, but it's not like I want to pay attention to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you have a third party candidate running, sometimes they could influence policies of the others a little bit, but seems like he hasn't been given much of a spotlight. And I hear that his opinions are reasonable and may have some insight about crypto. So I don't know too much about him though.
More government, more regulators. Hester Pierce. I've listened to her on Bankless several times. It's actually quite nice to hear a warm and welcoming opinion favorably towards crypto coming from the SEC. And again, over here at AB, we're not SEC haters. We're trying to help them improve how they regulate everything. I would love to have Hester Pierce on the show and give her our feedback and whatnot on our stance towards regulations. What do you have to say here, Monty? I know you included her on our list of topics. Has some developments happened recently with her? And are we hearing maybe tremblings of her wanting to be the lead? What is the director? Is it the director of the SEC? Is that what Gensler is right now?
Yeah. Hey, sorry about that. So she's a commissioner at the SEC. The SEC is 5 commissioners. The reason I kind of brought her in, we're writing a long form piece on kind of regulation right now. We were talking about JD Vance, who's a potential vice president candidate who's pro crypto. I think Hester Pierce is a potential SEC chairman who's also pro crypto.
Chairman, right?
If she became the SEC chairman, I think it would open the door to a lot more ETFs, and I don't think they would necessarily have to follow the same rules that Bitcoin and Ethereum did with kind of the futures correlation. I think if she becomes SEC commissioner or chair, or someone else more pro crypto, the doors to a lot more ETFs open, which is definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and this is an interesting spin-off random topic, but I want to get into this because you kind of just brought it back to my mind. How many ETFs is going to be too many? I mean, and where are we going to stop, right? Everyone thinks that, of course, we've just got the ETH one, which honestly I wasn't expecting to see it until more the end of this year, maybe next year. That happened faster than a lot of people expected. Now, the rumors are that it's going to be Solana next, which honestly, I kind of have a hard time believing that will pass. But I mean, I've seen crazier things happen. But then, say that happens and we get a third, then it's like, where does it stop, right? Do we get one for Dogecoin? Do we get one for Ripple? Do we get one for USDC? Like, and how many do we need? And where do these regulatory institutions kind of draw the line with what they see as reasonable and what's not?
So I've actually thought about this before. So BlackRock's building on Ethereum. So they're probably more incentivized to make Ethereum succeed. And they want each ETF to continue to succeed. So if the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF, both a year in, are doing very well, I think there's a high likelihood they continue to launch more. Coinbase recently filed futures contracts for Avalanche, Chainlink, Polkadot, Stellar, I don't know what that is, and Shiba Inu.
Yep.
And the futures contracts was kind of the route that the Bitcoin Ethereum ETFs took to become ETFs, spot ETFs. So if those get approved, I expect a similar kind of route thing to happen. Mm-hmm. In short, I think the answer is we don't know, and there's no clear regulation. This has been a frustrating topic, I know, for many people, and hopefully over the next year or so, there's more kind of idea of what's a commodity, what's a security, what can have an ETF, what can't have an ETF, and just the rules of the road.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that if people want to trade more, let them trade more. I don't think that ETFs are something that can hurt, in my opinion. It's likely to create a more competitive environment for ETFs. But to me, that's just more people wanting to trade in crypto assets. So if you're bringing more people in to trade crypto assets, then I see it as pretty much only beneficiary to the crypto space.
Yeah, if you want my conspiracy theory, I'll call it now. I think the Sol ETF might be the one to fade. And we can clip that. We'll watch me get wrecked when the Sol ETF passes and Solana goes to 20,000. But I don't know.
Well, wait, on that note, there's a bullet unlock for Solana in March of 2025 or so, where a lot of tokens from like the recent Galaxy deals and all of these that were bought at like $60 or $80.
Yeah,
will be unlocked. So something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think that's going to be, I'm definitely not a fudder, and I like Solana, but I do not think that, I don't know. I feel like that, at this size, what's the size difference of ETH and Solana? Maybe events like that probably have a little bit more of an impact.
I think ETH is like 44 times as big, but Solana's, they're making a name for themselves. That's something to keep an eye on next bear market, but
people love Solana, man. People just love it.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm seeing Solana almost comparable to like I think the number two, there's always going to be a number two to number one. And obviously
would you rather own Binance or Solana right now? They're pretty comparable in market cap.
That's easy. Solana.
Yeah, I would rather be in Solana for sure. I was going to say, we initially kind of got into Ethereum in 2016. It was the number two to Bitcoin being the number one best asset. It's like every number one's always going to have a number two. And I think that ETH now has taken its own number one spot as the kind of smart contract based layer, platform to win them all. So obviously Solana is the biggest contender. And for whatever reason, I see almost, a big comparison I've been using this week and this past month starting is the new big three being, not Kendrick and Drake and J. Cole, but Apple, Microsoft, Apple, and Ethereum, right? I really do think that's going to be the big three of just software competitors. Really, more than software, it's global tech at this point. If you look at, there's a real cool website that I think our buddies at Bankless showed me initially. Just companies by market cap. You have first number one is gold, right? These are really just top assets by market cap. You have gold at number one with 15 1.8 trillion, right? Then the next two is Apple, Microsoft, both coming in at 3.3 trillion, 3.1 trillion. You've got some other major macro institutions. Then you have silver. Then you have Bitcoin. ETH is all the way down here.
I think it's interesting what you said about the big three. I feel like that Nvidia and Amazon are quite similar to what ETH will become, because they're so based in cloud processing and cloud compute. So I think it's very interesting to see that ETH is actually competitive with a lot of those top assets up there.
Yep. Yet it's only a tenth the size.
Right.
Which makes me bullish. I think I got on that rant to say that now Solana, I'm starting to see almost appear to be sort of like the Apple of blockchains now, where ETH is turning into the boomer tech, the old fucking, dusty, nerdy Bill Gates, and Solana is like the sexy, Steve Jobs in a turtleneck busting it down with the iPhone. For whatever reason, I don't know if Solana's just got they've got better graphics and appeal to more smooth brains, which our whole team is full of. Right, we do not claim to be have a less.
I think the good comp is for Solana, and it's not I've heard this somewhere. Solana's one cycle behind ETH.
Yeah, of course.
Which is like dope. The next bear market scoop it up.
Yeah.
Will there be another, like Solana and ETH have mind share? I've seen like an Chain maybe as another L1, but like, are there any L1s that you guys think could break through, for lack of a better word?
L1s?
Yeah.
I mean, BNB isn't going anywhere. Like, CZ just got out of jail. If anything, if anything, it's BNB is kind of like the Asian Solana. And let me say this: as a long time Solana user, here's what I think: the ETH community wants to build on ETH. The Solana community wants to dump on you. Literally.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what I've seen, and I like Solana. There's plenty of good people building on it, but more so, I just feel like a lot of Solana hype is being fueled right now by meme coins, celebrity stuff. There's all kinds of pump and dump over there. Not saying ETH is completely free of that, but I just have always, ever since I've used Solana, sensed that, there's a lot of people that bring you in and there's a lot of ways to get dumped on. So I think that's just a sign that Solana is still growing and maturing as a blockchain. But it is the Wild West over there, even compared to ETH.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Look, like we like Solana. We've been following it since day one in 2020. I mean, our fund got into Solana probably at about like $3, and sold most of it around the 30 to 50 levels. And I think 2020, we just didn't re-enter for a long time. And now, just recently, in the past couple of months, we've gotten back in because there's just too much hype around it to kind of miss out. I mean, we're only talking a few percent of our fund right now. It's tough for me as such a fundamental investor to look at something like Solana. And I mean, obviously, there's fundamentally still a lot of great development happening, but I think one of their biggest, value adds is that they're, even faster and even cheaper than Ethereum. But of course, at the risk of what? It's at the risk of, more centralization, compared to ETH. And I really think that, decentralization, like true decentralization and in terms of a lot of things, is a major factor as far as which one of these actual base layer platforms is going to exist, which I think actually brings me to a really good transition for this article. This was a repost by Anthony Sassano. If any of you guys don't know, he runs the Daily Gwei. He's probably the top public Ethereum researcher, in the world. I think there's probably some better ETH researchers that are in the shadows. I'd say most 90% of ETH researchers are in the shadows, but Mr. Sassel.eth is the man. he posted this, what is Ethereum? And I read this, and they make some pretty good, Mr. Tim Robinson here makes some pretty good points. Ethereum is the settlement layer for global finance. It is the only blockchain that can be this. And, he goes into talk about, just like I'm not trying to bash, Solana or any other L1s, but making a really strong argument here about, the difference of making a, cool blockchain versus making a real global, settlement layer for the entire, multi-trillion-dollar financial system. And it's like, when you get to that, that's where, right, maybe with retail, cool graphic design and influencers will go a long way. But I mean, if you're talking about the real global base layer for big money, I think that, true decentralization is going to actually be a much bigger factor. So I would recommend this, read this. It's actually more than just a simple breakdown. It kind of goes into some deep kind of thoughts. But good for anyone who needs a refresher on what is ETH and why it matters. Also good to share around if you have friends that want to know more.
Also, not every blockchain has to be this, right? So I'm of the belief that Solana is going to have its niche, and perhaps its niche doesn't rely on being the most decentralized blockchain. Perhaps its niche is going to be gaming and doing 100,000 transactions per minute or whatever, the numbers are. So I do think a high throughput blockchain is important. And I also think that this can, you can get into a deeper discussion of, do we compare Solana to Ethereum, or do we compare Solana to L2s like Base and Polygon? Because I personally think that at this moment, it's a little bit more comparable to those L2s. So that's something.
Do we think Base or Solana is making more money right now? And or do we think Base or Solana, which one will make more money over the next decade?
Well, let's look which one has more TVL if you want to pull up DeFi Llama real quick.
Well, I'm talking about profit.
Yeah, TVL doesn't really tell you who's making
like Solana. I think its inflation offsets any fees it generates, and I know that makes sense. But I'm wondering at what point does that flip, and or I'm pretty sure Base is making a few $1 million a day.
Yeah, let's look at the fees. We've granted DeFi Llama is the 100% accurate arbiter of truth. Solana's coming in at 1.84 mil per day. What do we see on Base? Base is coming in at a tenth of that, 152K per day.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have Base is smaller than Solana, no doubt.
But does Solana's inflation offset? Like Base isn't. What I'm trying to say is that is it better to create an L1 where you're actually inflating more? Maybe the market cap's higher. Is it better to build on top of Ethereum as an L2 if you build it the right way, where you're just printing money, the kind of like Base is?
Yeah, I don't know.
Something to think about.
It's tough to say. Also, one reason that you can't quite compare the TVL is because who knows how much of Solana's TVL is literally just Solana tokens that are held by FTX still or something like this, right? Whereas Base, not having its own native currency, I think doesn't have that same kind of influence in the TVL, right? It only has the ETH that was bridged over instead of having the native currency be built into the TVL calculation. And probably the same thing is true about the fees in a way, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, it's like, everyone should know that in this industry, right, we're still in the Wild West. I mean, the whole industry is still the Wild West. We have awesome tools like this, but there's still, that was a joke, right? Not all of this is 100% accurate at all, right? This is just kind of some of the best things that we have. There's another really good research, Grow the Pie. What is it? .xyz. This is another thing that built by Anthony Sassano and his team. But these tools are only going to be so accurate, and a lot of these numbers can kind of be spoofed in ways, right? Like volume. It's like it's kind of the game theory, right? Once a team figures out or the industry figures out what's the metric to kind of manipulate, they're all going to start doing that, right? Whether it's transaction volume or TVL or whatever's next, to kind of get advertising into this big tech financial money audience, because obviously that's going to lead to people pumping your coin. But yeah, it's hard to tell. So that's why kind of using the most tools as possible, good quality tools, it's important to get your information from decentralized sources at least. All right, we'll wrap it up. We got a couple more tabs here. Let's see. We have the Solana. You guys have heard of that ETF. I think we had one or two more links here. Oh yeah, we've got some on-chain stories from our good friends at Coinbase, Mr. Jesse Pollack and Big Armstrong, the base god himself. I think that look, we're very big on going directly to the source for all your information, right? As we do, as you guys should. If you want to learn about Ethereum and you want to learn about Bitcoin and you haven't read the white papers yet, well, you're doing a bad job, right? You need to go straight to the source for information, which is why anytime Jesse Pollack or Brian Armstrong speaks, similar to anytime Vitalik speaks, if you're in the crypto industry trying to make money, you should definitely listen to them. That these are big beacons of good information that are giving very, very kind of top level alpha, right? Straight from the mouth. So here they had a conversation. This was a month ago. And information moves so fast, but still, you can find great information from years ago that no one has seen in this industry a lot. And I think this was just a good video where they kind of talked about kind of some macro things within Coinbase that Base L2 is working on, that they're working on with the smart wallet, and just giving some really good guidance towards the entire industry as they usually do.
736 views.
Exactly.
Right.
Like in 1 month, right? This is how early we are.
I'm a big base bull. I've gone in heavily on base. I've been heavily active on Solana. Something about the potential flywheel of Coinbase and Coinbase being a publicly traded company, and the fact that, I think Coinbase being more centralized can more effectively realize the chain's revenue and then turn it into something great. So I think there is actually some benefit here. Here's an example of where there may be benefit to having some centralization around base. But as I mentioned, I'm super bullish on Aerodrome. I'm currently locked a lot of capital in there, and I'm learning a lot from Aerodrome about what can really be done with a fully on-chain governance system and DEX. So to me, this kind of goes back to what we were saying with Melker and Aave, and I think there's some great examples of innovation on base. So something to look out for.
Yeah, if anyone doesn't know what Aerodrome is, it's kind of a big wormhole of a project. Aerodrome, you've got Velodrome, all the drones, they seem to be building out. It seems from my research to be, some of the core, whether it's core ETH dev team or core affiliated ETH dev team or core base dev team, whatever, it seems to be the white hats that are pretty deep in those circles, building out their own, essentially multi-dimensional kind of chain agnostic exchange, right? Almost like the second Uniswap. They seem to be a pretty good stab at, building a DEX that is going to be kind of multi L2 based, and not just being a copy paste of Uniswap, like Dylan said.
It's totally different. Yeah, so
right.
I'll give a quick overview. Basically, the reason Aerodrome is currently had a little pump is because it flipped Uniswap in overall trading volume. So that includes Uniswap on base and ETH. So Aerodrome actually flipped, at least temporarily, doing more volume than Uniswap on ETH mainnet, which is a big deal. And to explain what Aerodrome is simply, it's a protocol where you can stake the token Aerodrome, and instead of just being a generic governance token like Uniswap, the stakers actually determine how much of the Aerodrome rewards and the trading fees go to each particular liquidity pool. So they have liquidity farming built in, and they've decentralized the governance of that to where all of the rewards are determined by the Aerodrome holders. So I think it's really cool. If you're looking to invest in Aerodrome, I would suggest considering locking up your Aerodrome for 4 years. And I know it's a big consideration, but the reason I decided to do that is because you should be able to ROI within 6 months to a year on that and then continue making money. And what's really cool is that ROI comes in whatever tokens you choose. So last week I earned DGen and Ethereum. This week I earned completely different tokens. One of them was a USD based token. So it's really cool. And you actually week to week can receive your rewards in different tokens based on what's profitable. So me personally, I'm just picking whatever's profitable and then selling it on a week to week basis and using that as some income. So I think it's really cool. And for anyone who's interested in DeFi and DEXs, I do think this is true innovation, like something I've never seen before in my years here in crypto.
Yeah, and full disclosure, none of that was financial or investment advice, right? That's all from an educational perspective, right, Dill?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're pretty bullish on Aerodrome and Velodrome. I think the Advantage Blockchain Fund got into this probably we started buying around 10 cents. We're looking pretty good right now. I think they've got a lot more to grow. We'll see. I think we can wrap it up with, let's see, I think we had one more here. We got a little jumbled up. Kennedy, Hamilton. No, maybe that's it. All right, well, why don't we end on that? I think we got a lot of good resources. We're going to keep bringing you guys a lot more tools and stuff to help you guys gain more knowledge on this crazy market that it is. Thank you to the AB Research team, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.